The skies over the Pacific held many dangers, but few shook Japanese crews more than the sudden appearance of the Consolidated B-24 Liberator. Unlike the familiar silhouettes of the B-17 Flying Fortress, the B-24 was longer, lower, and more menacing in profile. Its distinctive high-mounted shoulder wings and tall, slab-sided fuselage looked ungainly at first glance, even to experienced Japanese observers. But it was this very design that gave the Liberator a presence unlike anything they had encountered before. Initial intelligence reports from Japan in 1942 noted the aircraft's odd structure and questioned whether such a large machine could survive long-range missions across the Pacific. Yet doubts quickly faded as Japanese forces realized the B-24 was not only capable but designed precisely for that role. Its extended range, nearly double that of the B-17 in some conditions, stunned Japanese analysts. Suddenly, bases thought to be safe, remote islands and fortified positions deep in the Pacific, were within striking distance. The B-24 had rewritten the map of war. First encounters were often unnerving. Japanese pilots described the Liberator as a fortress that could not be outrun, its speed surprisingly higher than expected for such a massive bomber. Anti-aircraft crews complained about its altitude performance, as the B-24 could cruise higher than many Japanese interceptors comfortably operated. The sense of vulnerability among Japanese defenders grew, not just from the bomber's firepower, but from the unsettling realization that nowhere was truly out of reach. And that's exactly why you are here, because the story of the B-24 isn't just about steel, engines, or wings. It's about the fear it inspired, the respect it earned, and the legacy it left behind. If you're fascinated by the hidden truths of aviation history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another story of the aircraft that changed the world. For Japan, the B-24's arrival marked a turning point. The war had entered a new phase. What began as skepticism soon evolved into recognition that this ungainly machine was one of the Allies' most dangerous tools in the Pacific. When Japanese engineers and intelligence officers studied the Liberator more closely, they quickly realized that appearances were deceiving. To them, the B-24 was not just a bomber. It was a machine that pushed the boundaries of American aircraft design. At its heart lay four Pratt & Whitney R-1830 twin Wasp engines, each delivering over 200 horsepower. This power, combined with the Liberator's Davis wing, long, narrow, and aerodynamically efficient, gave it an astonishing range of more than 2,100 miles without refueling. For the Japanese, accustomed to thinking in terms of island chains and limited strike zones, this was deeply unsettling. In technical comparisons, the Liberator appeared to shatter the limitations of conventional bomber design. Its maximum bomb load reached 8,000 pounds, allowing it to carry heavier strikes than the Mitsubishi G4M, Betty, or even Japan's heaviest land-based bombers. But what impressed and frustrated Japanese strategists most was its versatility. The same aircraft that could level airfields in Rabaul was also capable of maritime patrol, anti-submarine warfare, and long-range reconnaissance. Every new role it performed stretched Japanese defenses thinner and revealed how adaptable Allied aviation had become. Yet the Liberator was not flawless, and Japanese intelligence spotted weaknesses. Its deep fuselage and high-mounted wing created stability issues, making it harder to maneuver at low altitudes. Crews reported the aircraft to be difficult to control once damaged, and its fuel tanks were notoriously vulnerable to fire. Japanese fighter pilots, particularly those flying the agile A6M-0, saw these vulnerabilities as their best chance. In training manuals, emphasis was placed on slashing head-on attacks to overwhelm the bomber's defensive arcs. But even here, reality was harsh. The Liberator bristled with up to 10 50-caliber Browning machine guns arranged in nose, tail, waist, and top turrets. For a Japanese pilot in a lightly armored Zero, A head-on charge was often a gamble between glory and annihilation. What unsettled Japan most was not the Liberator's individual specifications, but how all its strengths combined. Long range, heavy payload, and daunting defensive firepower made the B-24 a weapon that simply outclassed most Japanese aircraft. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. Its very existence shifted the balance of technical power in the Pacific skies. The first time Japanese fighter pilots met the B-24 in combat, they were caught off guard. Unlike the familiar B-17, the Liberator appeared in larger numbers, and at altitudes the Japanese struggled to match. Over the Solomon Islands in 1942, early encounters revealed just how dangerous these bombers could be. Liberators could strike airfields at Rabaul, shipping lanes across the Bismarck Sea, and even oil refineries in the Dutch East Indies, targets Japan had considered secure due to their distance. Suddenly, nowhere felt safe. For Zero pilots tasked with intercepting them, the experience was harrowing. The B-24's defensive firepower turned every attack into a deadly gamble. Survivors often recalled that approaching from the rear was almost suicidal, as twin 50-caliber Brownings from the tail turret could shred a Zero before it closed to firing range. Attacks from above or below were only slightly less dangerous, with top and belly turrets scanning the skies constantly. Many Japanese pilots described Liberators as flying porcupines, bristling with guns from every angle. Still, Japanese units adapted, employing massed, coordinated assaults. Pilots were instructed to focus on slashing frontal attacks, diving past the cockpit in the hope of disabling pilots or knocking out the nose guns. Even so, these encounters often ended with heavy Japanese losses. Records from the 251st Kokutai noted that intercept missions against Liberators consumed valuable pilots and aircraft for little return, as the bombers pressed on to hit their objectives despite heavy resistance. The psychological effect was amplified during night raids. Japanese anti-aircraft gunners, already stretched thin, found Liberators difficult to track in the dark. Explosions tore through supply depots, shipping harbors, and airfields with devastating precision. Survivors remembered the sound of 4 roaring engines overhead, followed by cascading bombs that turned the ground into chaos. Unlike lighter Allied bombers, the Liberator could absorb tremendous punishment and still limp back to base, denying Japanese crews the satisfaction of confirmed kills. These combat encounters left a bitter impression. For every Liberator brought down, several Zeros might be lost. And even when successful, Japan's defenders found themselves too late. The damage had already been done. To them, the B-24 was not just a machine of destruction, but a relentless predator, able to appear from the horizon, strike with fury, and vanish into the vast Pacific night. For Japan's military and civilian population alike, the B-24 Liberator quickly grew into a symbol of dread. Unlike earlier bombers that targeted nearby bases or frontline positions, the Liberator's extraordinary range brought the war deep into Japanese-controlled territories that had once seemed untouchable. Bases in the Philippines, oil fields in Borneo, and shipping convoys in the South China Sea all fell within its grasp. The message was clear. Japan could run, but it could not hide. Pilots of the Imperial Japanese Navy and Army Air Service carried a heavy burden. Many described the sinking feeling of climbing into their cockpits, knowing they were about to face formations of Liberators. Each mission brought the same nightmare: heavily armed aircraft that refused to go down, spewing firepower from multiple angles, and capable of striking vital infrastructure even under intense opposition. Veterans noted how demoralizing it was to expend ammunition, fuel, and lives against bombers that still managed to hit their targets. For young aviators, the prospect of survival felt slimmer with every encounter. On the ground, fear spread even faster. Villagers near oil installations or shipping docks remembered the drone of engines followed by sudden devastation from the sky. Air raid sirens in places like Balikpapan and Rabaul triggered panic long before bombs fell. Survivors recalled how entire communities would flee into jungles or caves, seeking safety from a threat they could neither predict nor stop. Each raid planted seeds of helplessness that slowly eroded confidence in Japan's ability to defend its empire. Even Japanese commanders admitted the psychological toll. Reports forwarded to Tokyo often described the Liberator as more than just a bomber. It was a constant reminder of Allied reach and determination. Unlike single-engine fighters or short-range bombers, the B-24 demonstrated that American industry could build machines that ignored distance, fuel, and attrition. For every Liberator destroyed, new ones appeared in greater numbers. That sense of inevitability wore down morale not only among the defenders, but also within the Japanese high command, who began to grasp the scale of the challenge they faced. To many in Japan, the B-24 became a ghost in the skies, always present, always watching, and always capable of unleashing devastation when least expected. It wasn't just an enemy aircraft, it was the embodiment of Allied persistence, a signal that Japan's once expansive empire was shrinking with each mission flown. When the dust of World War II settled, Japan's memory of the B-24 Liberator lingered as one of the most haunting legacies of the air war. While Japan had faced many formidable aircraft during the conflict, the Liberator stood out not for elegance or maneuverability, but for its relentless utility. It was an aircraft that did not just fight battles, it shifted the balance of entire campaigns. Captured Japanese reports studied after the war revealed how deeply the Liberator had unsettled their strategic calculations. Its sheer range meant no territory was safe, no garrison beyond reach, and no convoy guaranteed protection. The Liberator's impact extended beyond the damage it inflicted. It forced Japan to divert precious resources toward defending vast areas of its empire, stretching thin an already overburdened military machine. In hindsight, commanders admitted that defending everywhere against the Liberator was the same as defending nowhere effectively. For the Japanese people, the psychological scars remained. Those who had lived under the constant threat of air raids remembered the sound of its engines as the herald of destruction. Towns, supply depots, and airfields hit by Liberators often carried stories of sudden devastation that seemed impossible to prevent. Even after surrender, these memories endured, shaping Japan's collective understanding of air power in modern warfare. Among Allied veterans, the B-24's reputation was equally complex. Crews respected its versatility and ability to go where few other bombers could. For Japan, however, it symbolized an enemy that was tireless, mechanical, and overwhelming. Unlike duels between fighters or tactical skirmishes, the B-24 represented industrial warfare at its most ruthless. A machine backed by factories, assembly lines, and a nation determined to grind down its opponent through sheer persistence. In the years following the war, Japan looked back on the Liberator not with admiration, but with reluctant acknowledgement. It had not been glamorous like the Spitfire, nor iconic like the B-17, but in Japanese eyes, it had been something far more devastating, an unyielding force that erased any illusions of safety across their empire. For them, the B-24 was less a plane and more a symbol, a constant reminder that America's reach was infinite, and that no corner of Japan's wartime empire could remain untouched.